First of all, good morning. And it's great to be in front of a jam-packed room. So thank you so much for that as well. So let me reintroduce myself. I'm GIRISH MOHILE from CMB Regional Centers. I'm an Indian lawyer. I represent CMB Regional Centers in India market. And today we are going to discuss the latest offering, CMB Group 97, Stillwater Travis South. But before we begin, just a show of hands as to how many people have at least heard about EB-5 or know about EB-5 visa. Of course you. All right. So just to give you a brief background about EB-5 visa, it's an investment-based visa wherein the main applicant, spouse, and unmarried children below 21 years of age can apply for EB-5 visa via a qualified investment of US dollars 800,000. Now this is the minimum investment criterion. So you need to fall under a certain criteria to get to that lower amount of 800,000 US dollars. So you need to invest in a project which is in a targeted employment area in a qualified business, which will enable or qualify that main applicant along with the family for EB-5 investment at 800,000 US dollars. In case you apply outside of that TEA, then the investment amount is at 1,050,000 US dollars. But mostly, you will find that whenever it comes to a regional center investment, the investment amount is lowered at 800,000 US dollars because mostly regional centers function in that so-called TEA or targeted employment area. Now, before we talk about the project, let me just introduce CMB Regional Centers first. So CMB Regional Centers has been in EB-5 space or has been functioning as a regional center since 1997. So we are actually the second oldest regional center in EB-5 space. And in those 28 years, we have worked on more than 92 projects until now. And Mr. Patrick F. Hogan, he is the founder and CEO of CMB Regional Centers. And he's considered as a pioneer in EB-5 space, in regional center EB-5 space, because he came up with a couple of things which are now a norm in regional center EB-5. So firstly, loan model. You will hear something called as a loan model. That is something Mr. Pat came up with. And second is indirect or induced job creation. These are very important aspects in regional center EB-5 investment. Rather, that is something which makes regional center EB-5 an attractive option as compared to something called as a direct option, where you have to reinvent the wheel. You have to come up with your own business. You invest your own 800,000 or $1 million, depending on where the project is. You need to create those 10 full-time jobs, which is one of the qualifying factors for EB-5. So those 10 full-time jobs need to be created. So those are actual people. In regional center EB-5, the jobs are created in a different manner. So in regional center EB-5, there is something called as indirect or induced job creation. So what happens is, if X number of funds are invested in that project, in the completion or construction of this project, then Y number of jobs are created. Now, before we go to that, just one more point to add. What are these qualifying projects? So it can be a construction-driven project. It can be construction of a hospitality, a logistics park. It can be a resort. So any capital-intensive project which is in a certain area can qualify the investor for EB-5 visa. So this is Mr. Pat's daughter, Noreen Hogan. She is the president of CMB Regional Centers, and she runs day-to-day operations of the company. And this is very important. You will often find that there are regional centers who are smaller in size. They don't have enough experience. We have 28 years of experience, and we have the second gen already ready. So Noreen has been involved in CMB since more than 1 decade now, and now she's running day-to-day operations of the company. So these are few stats which I think are very important. So whenever you are considering EB-5 visa via a regional center option, you're going to speak with 2, 3, 4, or 5 regional centers. And one of the key aspects to understand whether that regional center has enough experience in the field is to understand these stats. So in those 28 years, we have worked with more than 6,400 plus investors. Now, I'm not counting the main applicant, the children, and the spouse separately. I'm considering them as one single unit. So we have worked with 6,400 plus investors from 103 different countries, including India. And out of those, now EB-5 is a step-by-step process. So throughout the day, we are going to have different panel discussions where you will get to know different terms like I-526 e-petition, I-485 petition. So these are all different stages which every EB-5 investor has to cross. So we have 5,600 plus investors who have received that first approval after making the qualified investment. We have 2,700 plus investors with I-829 approval. So that essentially means that you have gone through the whole cycle and you have been able to accomplish that final permanent green card, which is valid for 10 years and you can keep renewing that. And then almost the same, 2,700 plus investors with full repayment of capital. So out of those 6,400, 2,700 plus have already received their investment back. That is second most important concept. First being the job creation and your green card, and the second being the return of capital. So whatever investment that you do with a regional center, the 800,000 US dollars, that is something which you can expect back. So we currently have 6 regional centers. Now just to define a regional center, it's a designation which any entity gets. So you have to comply with the USCIS, which is the adjudicating authority in the US for immigration. You have to comply with their norms, and that is when you get a regional center designation. So we have 6 regional center designations, which essentially allows CMB to operate in different states within the US. Now, what is the priority for an EB-5 investor? The first priority, of course, is a green card. Now, even if we say that this is an investment-based visa, this is not a traditional investment. So what is a traditional investment? You're expecting some kind of returns, correct? So if I'm investing 800,000 US dollars, the first question would be, what am I getting? The first priority is that green card. That's the return, actual return on your investment. Second being return of your investment. So the 800,000 that you're investing, you're expecting to get those funds back. So the third and a very distant priority is return on your investment. So you're not going to get 8, 10, 12% returns, especially in a regional center EB-5 investment. Usually you will find that most of the leading regional centers, the returns are going to be less than 1% per annum during the tenure of your investment, and that's not necessarily bad. That actually means that your investment is low risk. Now, I'm not saying that should be the only criteria for finalizing a regional center investment. There are other components as well, but that being one of the important components, that if someone is offering you a higher return, you need to double check as to why there are these kind of higher returns which are being offered. Now, this is the loan model which I was talking about. So when you will be investing in a regional center investment, you mostly will be investing in that specific project. So Group 97 being one of the examples. So let's consider CMB Limited Partnership as CMB Group 97. So each investor, we are looking for 19 investors in this project. So each of those investors will become a limited partner in CMB Group 97. So you enter the limited partnership as a limited partner. Now this limited partnership has a general partner, which is CMB itself. CMB Group, CMB 197 is going to be the general partner in this. So all these are SPVs, special purpose vehicles. And this limited partnership, this CMB Group 97, is in the business of lending funds to the developer. So developer becomes the borrower. So on the right-hand side over there, the project borrower is the developer. So they are constructing something, right? So the loan goes in from limited partnership to the project borrower. Now this loan is for a period of 5 years. In this scenario, different regional centers are going to have different tenures. So in this project, the loan tenure is 5 years, and the repayment will happen once the construction is complete. The project is either sold off or refinanced, and that is when the borrower is going to be in a position to repay the loan back into the partnership, and then each of the investors will in turn get their return of capital. So again, this is a very important slide as well. As I was mentioning, there are smaller regional centers out there, probably 4 or 5 people. The CEO is also wearing a hat of that of a salesperson, compliance, legal. He's essentially doing everything. We have a team of more than 50 members just in the US, so we are headquartered in Dallas. We have a regional office in Rock Island, which is around 2.5 hours away west of Chicago. And there are other representatives outside of the US as well, such as myself. So I'm based in Mumbai. I'm permanently located in India. So at any given point in time, you are going to have 2 points of contacts. One is myself and someone based in the US office. So out of those 92 projects, now we have certain projects which are in the queue. We have 80 plus projects which are already approved. So they have either received the 924 approval as per the previous law, or 956F approval as per the current law, or the first I-526E petition approval. Now, let me give you the difference between these three application approvals. EB-5 is governed by Reforms and Integrity Act of 2022, which was passed in March of 2022. That is how the investment amount increased, and not just that, it brought in certain changes, additions, compliances, both in terms of investors, all the stakeholders within the industry, but it differentiated the investors which invested before that law. So whoever filed before 2022 falls under a separate queue, and whoever filed afterwards comes under a separate queue of the Reforms and Integrity Act. So that's one difference, and we are going to discuss that again during the panel discussion as well. So we have 80 plus project approvals, 60 plus projects wherein the investors have gone through that cycle and have received the final green card or I-829 approval, and 50 partnerships, 50 plus rather, wherein each of those investors, so if there are 99 investors, if there are 50 investors, each of those investors have successfully received their capital back. And these are staggering numbers. Now, whatever I'm saying is audited. So I cannot come up with a number and quote a number which I like. All these numbers which I just showed you are audited, and this is something which again is a requirement as per the law under Reforms and Integrity Act of 2022. But one more factor about CMB is that we have been conducting these audits starting 2014 for all the partnerships dating back to early 2000s as well. So even when the audit requirements was not a requirement or a compliance requirement in the first place, CMB has been conducting audits. So now coming to the current project. So I've given you a bit of an introduction of the project. We are looking for 19 investors over here. So the total EB-5 raise would be around 15.2 million US dollars. And the name of the partnership is CMB Group 97, Stillwater Travis South. So what's going to happen over here? The exact location is Austin, Texas. That is where the project is being constructed. And EB-5 funds essentially are going to fund the phase 1 of this project. So in phase 1, in the Travis South Industrial Development Area, there are going to be 2 industrial logistic facilities, which will total up to 300,000 square feet. Now these are going to be Class A facilities. So it's going to have the latest amenities available when it comes to any logistic facility. And the construction timeline, one of the important key factors in this project is the project has already been funded by a bridge loan. So what that means is project is already in advanced stages of completion. It's slated to be completed at the end of this year in Q4 of 2025. What that essentially means is when an investor will invest in this particular project, the job creation component will automatically be credited to that investor because the construction has already begun and it's going to end by the end of this year. Now, as I was mentioning, this is a Class A facility. These are all renderings which are in place, and this is the exact location. This is the subject site. So this borders the I-35. Now, one peculiar thing about I-35 highway is it connects the south of US to north. So it goes all the way to Canada as well. So this is going to be a very important supply chain location, if you see over here. So it's 10 minutes away from Austin. So when it comes to the workforce, someone who is going to work in this particular area, it's easy for them to travel in and out because it's 10 minutes away from Austin, and it's 60 minutes away from San Antonio. So if you see over here, it's right in the west side of the Texas Triangle. So the Texas Triangle has Dallas-Fort Worth in the north, Austin stands in the middle, then San Antonio is 60 minutes away in the south, and Houston on the east. So that's the supply chain corridor that this project is looking to achieve. You will be able to see what the connections to this particular project area are. Now you will be able to see the existing projects and existing companies which are already in this location. So if you see FedEx over there, Dell, now there are Tesla and Samsung facilities over there as well. So this particular logistic facility is going to enhance the supply chain for these two companies potentially. Now this falls under the 10% set aside. So there are different categories of set asides: rural category, high unemployment category, and infrastructure. Mostly you will find that the projects are either in rural area or high unemployment area. This falls under the high unemployment area, which has a 10% set aside. When it comes to job creation, there usually is a buffer. Now the buffer can be 12 jobs per investor, it can be 20, 25 jobs per investor. All you need to see is whether your 10 jobs are going to be secured or not. So we have already filed for 956F project application. We are expecting the approval soon. In all the projects that we have applied for since the passage of RIA, we have around 14 or 15 projects, and we have received approvals in all of those projects. So we are quite confident that we'll be easily able to get approval on this one as well. So there are 15.9 investors which are projected for each investor in this one. So for 19 investors, you actually need 190 jobs. And as per the projections, we have 303 jobs in total. Now, the project is smaller in size. So usually you will see that there are billion-dollar projects in EB-5 as well. As compared to that, this is a manageable project. So the total project cost is around 61 million US dollars, out of which developers' equity is 17.8. Now, there is one additional equity component. So we have another presentation at the end of this day about NHK Capital Partners. That's another Hogan company, which specifically deals into private equity in real estate investment. So they have pitched in to the developers' equity as well. So they lie below the EB-5 loan. There is an EB-5 loan of 15.2 million US dollars, and there is a senior construction loan worth 28 million US dollars. So a healthy capital stack split. And this is the pro forma. So as I was mentioning, the construction is already at an advanced stage. So the construction is slated to be completed by the end of this year. Now, what is going to happen to the money? So the loan period is for a period of 5 years. So once this construction is complete, the funds will be stored into a separate collateral account wherein CMB Group 97 is going to have the first priority rights. What it means is the developer cannot touch those funds unless CMB Group 97 approves it. Now, in totality, the project is going to be constructed in 31 acres of space. There is additional 25 acres, which is part of phase 2. So only when CMB Group 97 partnership or CMB as a general partner will allow, they will be utilized those funds into phase 2 as well. But there is no job creation credit component over there because the jobs through the phase 1 are already being credited to each of the investors. So there is a 100% membership pledge. What that essentially means is the senior lender is going to have the first priority lien on the asset itself. The borrower entity of this developer, which is Stillwater Capital in this particular project, we have a 100% lien on the borrower as a second priority lien on this project. So there is an intercreditor agreement between the senior lender and the mezz lender, which is CMB Group 97. We have a cash flow pledge agreement. So whenever the construction is going to be completed, mostly the project is going to be leased out. So what this means is all the net cash flow which will be generated through the lease or through the lease payment which the tenant is going to pay, 100% of that available net cash flow will be stored into a separate account, wherein CMB Group 97 will have the first priority rights. So these are all the collaterals which are activated or utilized only when there is something wrong with the project. If the project is completed, it's sold off on time, we don't have to utilize these collaterals. The third and the most important is completion guarantee. So the developer has given a completion guarantee to CMB Group 97 partnership. Now, a brief background about Stillwater Capital Partners. They have been in this business since 2010, so they have a lot of experience in construction of logistic facilities, master plan communities as well. And this is the track record between CMB and Stillwater as a developer and CMB as the lender. So we have worked with them on 4 occasions. On all 4 of those occasions, we have received the partnership approval or I-526 initial approval. We have received I-829 final green card approval on 2 of those occasions. The rest of them are still in queue. And all of the loans are already repaid back. So there is a 100% track record when it comes to Stillwater as a borrower repaying the loan back successfully to each of those partnerships. Now, NHK Capital Partners, as I was mentioning, it's an affiliate entity of CMB Regional Centers, and they have also contributed towards the equity component of this project. At the end of the day, my colleague Ranjita is going to explain how NHK Capital Partners work, but these are few projects wherein CMB has contributed the EB-5 component, NHK and Hogan family themselves have contributed towards the equity component, and then there is a senior lender in place. So these are 3 projects. Most of the loans are already repaid back. If you see the last one, Stillwater Augusta Street Lofts, there was a $6 million loan, so again, it was a smaller project. We have received I-526 project approvals, and the EB-5 capital loan is already repaid back in 2021. So, yep, so that's the presentation for CMB Group 97. If you have more questions, I'm available at the booth. The booth number is B1. And again, thank you so much for your attendance, and looking forward to speaking with each one of you. Thank you so much.